Good evening. Opposition spokesman on energy and mining, Phillip Paulwell, warns that consumers should brace for higher electricity bills.
I'm deeply concerned about the price of electricity that I'm seeing. In fact, many of the consumers who have approached me with bills way in excess of the 20% concession that was recently granted. In fact, I'm seeing bills more than 50% in some instances. So I'm very concerned, and it is quite likely that this is going to continue in the near future. I also want to point out that there could be further increases at the end of this month, especially if the government does not continue a waiver that it had granted to electricity producers who use automotive diesel oil to generate electricity. Currently, the tax on that would be $4.86 per liter. It has been waived, but we have not been told of any extension of that waiver beyond the end of this month. So it is foreseeable that that will generate further price increases if the waiver isn't granted. So I urge the government to grant a further waiver.
Mr. Paulwell is also calling on the government to extend for another 6 months its 20% concession on electricity bills for a majority of consumers.
I also believe that we are going to be in this price increase era, this price of electricity being much higher than it was before for some time. In fact, it is quite likely to surpass this financial year. So I'm calling upon the government to extend the concession of 20% to those who use 200 kilowatt hours and less beyond the 4-month period for the duration of this fiscal year, so that the consumers can continue to benefit. And even though the concession is at 20%, it really is not going to mean a lot for the consumers, because as we all know, with the increase of prices for electricity and transportation, this affects everything else in the society, every good, every service. So the consumers are going to be called upon to pay a lot more. Inflation is not going to be in single digit. In fact, it is going to be in double digits for the duration of this year.
Mr. Paulwell offered some advice to Prime Minister Andrew Holness on how to offset the cost of acquiring fuel.
The government is going to be hard-pressed to go back to Petrocarib. I believe that what happened was the greatest act of ungratefulness by an administration against a government that has been kind to it. Now that there are sanctions imposed against Venezuela, I think what the government needs to do is to approach the U.S. government for special dispensation to allow it to go back to Venezuela to see if it can secure arrangements as existed on the Petrocarib. Those arrangements provided Jamaica with tremendous benefits in that much of the oil that we purchase, they are purchased on a financing arrangement that didn't require upfront cash. And very importantly, in this era where we're not too sure what is going to happen with supplies going forward, that we had a ready supply of fuel, of oil from Venezuela. I believe that the government ought to approach the U.S. government for a special arrangement to overcome the sanctions that are imposed, that have been imposed by the U.S. government. I believe that we're going to face tremendous hardship without some kind of concessionary arrangement for the purchasing of fuel going forward.
A high alert has been activated for 11-year-old OMARI DACAS of Whitehall Avenue, Kingston 8, who has been missing since yesterday. He is of brown complexion, slim build, and about 5 feet tall. Reports from the police are that about 6:30 p.m. OMARI was last seen at home wearing a peach shorts, red top, and a pair of blue slippers. He has not been seen or heard from since. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of OMARI DACAS is being asked to contact the Constant Spring Police at 876-926-8184, Police 119 emergency number, or the nearest police station. The police are seeking the public's assistance to locate 20-year-old Craig Nelson, otherwise called Tuggy, who is unemployed of Portsmouth, Milton Close, St. Catherine, who has been missing since Monday, April 4. He is of dark complexion, slim build, and is about 5 feet 10 inches tall. Nelson sports a braided hairstyle. Reports from the Waterford Police are that Nelson was last seen in his community on Monday, April 4, about 7:30 p.m. His mode of dress at the time of his disappearance is unknown. He has not been heard from since. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Craig Nelson is being asked to contact the Waterford Police at 876-988-1763, Police 119 emergency number, or the nearest police station. One man is dead and 3 others injured in Montego Bay, St. James after the latest shooting incident that occurred about 10:30 last night in Lilliput. The dead man has been identified as 35-year-old Shane Mackenzie of Bob Man Hill in the area. Police reports are that Mackenzie was among a group of people at a sports bar in his neighborhood when 2 men entered and began shooting. 4 people were shot and were taken to hospital. Mackenzie was later pronounced dead. 2 men have been arrested and charged for the seizure of one 9mm Beretta pistol with a magazine containing 16 9mm rounds of ammunition was seized in Greenvale, Manchester yesterday. Charged with illegal possession of firearm and ammunition are 41-year-old Anthony Robinson, otherwise called Damien, a mechanic, and 49-year-old Wayne Williams, otherwise called Bushy, both of Coffee Peace in Clarendon. Reports are that at about 12:35 p.m., a team of police officers was conducting an operation in the area, which a vehicle was stopped and searched. The weapon and ammunition were found. The 2 men were subsequently arrested and charged. Their court date is being finalized. We will bring you more on this story in subsequent newscasts. Today marks the start of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry's 2-day security summit under the theme Collective Security Unity in Action at the Montego Bay Conference Center. Here's Colleen May with today's detail.
President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry Janet Silvera during the Chamber's first day of the Security Summit says this event will bear fruits of reduced crime and violence and a generation with a mindset for growth and development.
Never before have we had a summit on collective security as we see true unity in action. Not blaming the security forces, not blaming the Minister of National Security, but taking responsibility as citizens of this country and understanding that together, every single one of us, if we come together, can help to reduce crime and violence in this country. Today, we promise it will not be the same old, where something starts, there's a lot of talking, and then it fizzles out. With the help and the grace of God, this summit will bear fruits of reduced crime and violence and a generation with a mind set for growth and development. That is our reason for this summit. The reports on the news kept getting more horrific. Crime and violence seem never ending. The body count keeps piling up. Children shot and killed in their homes, which should be a safe haven. Mothers, fathers, sisters and brothers all gone too soon. As if that was not enough, the schools joined the fray. I believe they got jealous with the stabbing incidents and the jaw-dropping killing over a guard ring.
The 2-day security summit is being chaired under the theme Collective Security Unity in Action at the Montego Bay Convention Center. Assistant Commissioner of Police Clifford Chambers, in making his remarks at the summit, pointed out the issues that the parish of St. James are faced with that are fueling the high levels of crime and violence in the parish.
Some of the issues that we have here in St. James are unlike others. You know, we have the phenomenon of lottery scamming. We have the issue of gang conflict. We have the issue of intra-gang conflict. We have a proliferation of illegal firearms, which is directly related to the ease at which they're able to purchase them, which has its genesis to some extent in lottery scamming. And so we have to keep our eyes on all the varying issues. And then it channel into a level of social ills. And then when you have a cohort of youth who have an issue, looking at the realities of life, who everyone wants to be the man, everyone wants to be heard, and they have the willingness to attack each other, then we have the issue that we're having. The reality is that at two ends of the continuum, our youth are at risk. So we're looking at on or about 80% of our murders in this space being committed by our youth, which is a big problem. And invariably, the other side, if they're committing the crime, then we're seeing that they open themselves to being killed. They open themselves to being arrested, to be charged, to be prosecuted. And I see on the program that there is a legal element, which is critical, because the judiciary might be in a conundrum. How do you treat with a youth who commit a crime as a youth, and what do we do to get them back into society as, good, honest, hardworking member?
ACP Chambers also outlined several initiatives that have been implemented in Western Jamaica to combat the issue of crime.
We, as members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, have initiated a number of initiatives. We have the several youth programs, we have police youth club, we have school resource officer. We trained on about 52 recently, and it's so ironic that as soon as the training was completed and in the process of inserting them into the schools, we had those issues in William Neb, we had issues in Petersfield, we have issues in Mona High, but that gives you an indication of the reality that we face. And so we have to continuously see how we can influence the youth in a way to inculcate the construct of positive thinking. And so an event like this is very, very important. And so we do not have the solutions. We are part of the solution. And so the whole communitarianism construct that we're trying to engender here is something that I personally look forward to.
Director of Operations at the Guardsman Group, George Overton, in his keynote address at today's summit, pointed out that the country's security, justice and public order have suffered neglect for the past 50 years.
Jamaica has suffered from neglect of its security, justice, and public order infrastructure for the last 50 years. We found ourselves with a constabulary force that was under-equipped, under-resourced, under-trained, and a lack of technology to efficiently carry out their jobs. We had a justice system that did not have sufficient courts to meet the rising number of cases that were being put through the system. We had our prisons, which are supposed to be institutions of punishment and reform, deteriorate to a point that we really created a university and a networking location for criminal activities. We found ourselves with a school system that had been neglected. We had a student-to-teacher ratio that was impossible, and to coin the parlance of Jamaican, giving the teachers a basket to carry water. With this, we saw a deterioration in the law order of our society.
In his address, Mr. Overton also pointed out that youths need better alternatives when faced with the issue of crime and lottery scamming.
We need to understand that crime today in Jamaica is a business. It's a business, and just like every one of us that are in legitimate business, we are there to make money. So are the criminals. But this fact adds to the whole thing about our youth. What are the ambitions of our youth? when they see the scammer on the corner spending some serious money in entertaining and living the life that he does, having the assets that he has, and doing all the other things, what is it that we are offering the youth on the corner as an alternative? Many of those youth on the corner have fallen from the school system. They don't have the education base that can take them forward. The jobs that they're able to obtain is not giving them the fancy, fast life that they aspire to. And therefore, they are easy recruits for the organized crime ring.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
CARICOM leaders are to meet later this week to discuss the controversy that has arisen following Jamaica's announcement that Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith will challenge the incumbent Baroness Patricia Scotland for the post of Commonwealth Secretary General. At the end of their March intersessional summit held in Belize, CARICOM leaders issued a communique in which they expressed their overwhelming support for the re-election of Baroness Scotland. She was elected to the post at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta in 2015, and her re-election is scheduled to take place during the June Commonwealth Summit in Kigali, Rwanda. But last Friday, Jamaica announced that Mrs. Johnson-Smith would be seeking to replace Baroness Scotland. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has defended the government's decision to put up Minister Johnson-Smith for the post of Commonwealth Secretary General in the face of skepticism on the issue among leaders of the Caribbean community, CARICOM. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says Jamaica has engaged in a process of consultation with heads of CARICOM regarding the possible candidature of Minister Johnson-Smith for the position of Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Mr. Holness also informed that discussions had also been held to seek a better understanding of their thinking about the leadership of the organization. He made a disclosure during a statement in the House of Representatives yesterday. Prime Minister Holness said with a very limited exception, the responses of the heads of state and government as well as foreign ministers with whom they have engaged across regions have been extremely encouraging, with several of them voluntarily committed to seek support for the candidature for their regional colleagues. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness said there is no correlation between Minister Johnson-Smith's candidature and the state visit of Rwanda President Paul Kagame to Jamaica next week. He said the government looks forward to hosting one of the leaders of the most progressive countries on the African continent. A total of 8,500 new hotel rooms are set to come on stream within the next 5 years. Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett made the disclosure as he opened the 2022-2023 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives yesterday. Mr. Bartlett said among the projects is a 2,000-room Princess Resort in Hanover, which will become Jamaica's largest resort. 2,000 rooms coming with Hard Rock Resort development and 1,000 rooms coming with Sandals and Beaches in St. Anne. Plans are also underway for the Viva Wyndham Resort North Negril with 1,000 rooms, the new Rio Hotel in Trelawney with approximately 700 rooms, a new Secrets Resort in Richmond St. Anne with around 700 rooms, and Bahia Principe has announced massive expansion plans by its owners, Grupo Pinero, out of Spain. Mr. Bartlett said, quote, "This will be the largest wave of tourism development and expansion in the history of Jamaica. We are satisfied that notwithstanding the COVID disruptions, the investment climate in Jamaica remains strong and buoyant," end quote. Meanwhile, Jamaica is now regarded as one of the world's fastest recovering countries and the Caribbean's fastest growing tourist destination, says Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett. Opening the 2022-2023 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives on Tuesday, the minister credited the achievement of the excellent tactics and policies that the government put in place to contain the coronavirus. He cited in particular Jamaica's innovative resilient corridors, which cover most of the island's tourism regions and allow visitors to experience more of the country's distinctive offerings, noting that the compliant sites have been approved by the health authorities. Minister Bartlett said that since the reopening of the tourism industry in June 2020, the established procedures governing the corridors have kept both guests and workers secure, resulting in Jamaica becoming one of the most sought-after destinations. He added that the United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, classification of Jamaica at level 1 on its COVID-19 threat level system is a further boost to the tourism sector. He told Parliament that the ministry will continue key partnerships, especially with the Tourism Vaccination Task Force, to ensure continuation of vaccination for tourism staff, noting that 70% of the workers and their families have been inoculated. Jamaica yesterday reported 44 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of confirmed cases on the island to 128,924. The country also recorded 84 new recoveries, bringing the total number of recoveries to 81,588 and 226 confirmed active cases. According to the latest statistics from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the country also reported one more virus-related death. The death toll since the start of the pandemic now stands at 2,899. Of the newly reported cases, there were 27 females and 17 males, with ages ranging from 7 months to 82 years. Meanwhile, the latest death is that of an 81-year-old male from Westmoreland, whose death was previously under investigation. And those are the stories making the news. We now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with the sports.